I think life is bad anyway, regardless of what you feel. So, when you don't feel bad, you feel alienated from whatever problems you have. So, if there's no natural consequences to your actions at in the present moment, I think you then develop this drive to accelerate the consequences because you know they're going to come anyway at some point. So better sooner than later, so that they validate and motivate you. Because if you don't have any consequences, it's like you will have to pay for all your mistakes at the end, and you don't know when the end is going to be. The end it could be when you turn 18, or the end could be when you die, depending on your situation. When there's going to be serious consequences. So I think you develop this strong existential impatience when you don't suffer, and the lack of suffering, I think, makes joy seem even more implausible. So therefore, you want to suffer because that's the only thing that seems possible. I think the reason why so many people on the internet are like obsessed with the end of the world and things like that, and especially more in recent times, well, relatively recent times, is well, obviously number one because fewer and fewer people believe in society, but also because I think fewer and fewer people are able to experience appropriate consequences for their actions because there's so many safety nets that keep you in a state of comfortable decadence. So the only consequences that start to seem possible are the worst consequences, so you lose all sense of proportion. And therefore you also can become more paranoid about death because you've lost all sense of proportion, so it's the only thing that starts to seem real. And therefore your desire to suffer in a way is a desire to survive death. Because everything uh, becomes binary when you don't suffer, or rather when you're alienated from suffering. Or maybe it's just me. I don't know. Well, or it's not just me, but maybe it's not everyone. Or maybe this doesn't apply to everyone. It depends, of course, on your situation. If you're really if you're very depressed, well then I guess it doesn't apply to you, because that in itself is a consequence. But that's not my case. I don't feel anything good, but I don't feel anything terrible either. Now, when I was about like between 11 and 13, I started to strongly worry about the possibility that I would never be able to integrate into society, and that I would never be able that I wouldn't go to university, would never be able to find a job, and would never be loved by anyone or have any friends, and at most I would just have some acquaintances, if even that. So I started to think, well, this is very serious. That this is very grave. Like I'm not gonna get any of the good things from life. That sucks. That's very bad. But at the same time, I couldn't really feel anything because I mean I was pretty sad. I used to cry. I would cry a lot and that, but and I couldn't sleep at night. But I was sad, but not as sad as as I felt like I should have been. But why? Because it, life was just too easy to be sad. As in, there was problems, but there was no difficulty. You know, there was a problem that I was getting bullied at school. There was a problem that I didn't get along with my family. There was a problem that I felt lonely, but nothing was difficult. I just had to go to school and put up with being bullied, and then I had to go home and try my best to disconnect through just mindlessly consuming media. So I thought, you know, at some point there will be difficulty, and then I'll really suffer. And I thought that would be it when I was at 18. So I had sort of an impatience to reach the age where I couldn't get away with having such a bad, being in such a situation anymore. Because I would be forced to do something about it, and because I would be forced to care. But when I was 18, actually, the opposite happened. Things became even easier because I no longer even had to go to school. So I could just spend all day at home. And, you know, my parents at first made it a bit difficult for me. Because at first they were worried about my situation, but then eventually they accepted it. So, in order to have a level of suffering that is proportionate to the lack of joy, I've often used self destructive methods. When I was a kid, I can't remember the age, but it seems pretty young, definitely before my teenage years, I used to um, stop eating for as long as I could. And I would do this pretty often. I would, you know, do pretty unhealthy fasts, and they had pretty bad effects on my body, like long-term effects. Like it, my heart it permanently feels worse since I did some really long fasts. Like I've never gone to the doctor. I don't know if I have any real problem, but I know that my body definitely feels permanently worse than it did before fasting. Also, my hair falls out when I fast. Thankfully, I think that's temporary. Yeah, I've lost tons of hair in particularly the last year. Um, and also, I use cutting myself as a way to try to um, self enforce consequences. And the first time I cut myself, it felt so empowering because I thought, wow, my whole life I've kind of waited for someone to make me pay for my actions so that I don't have to just, you know, pay at the end when I definitely won't be able to. Um, yeah, something like that. But um, at this point, I realized, well, I can actually punish myself. I don't need anyone else to do it for me. So it was a very just liberating feel. But the thing is, I think this reducing alienation through self destruction doesn't actually work. I think it's fantasy that comes from this binary form of thinking. The idea that you're either suffering and therefore valid and motivated, or you're not suffering and therefore invalidated and unmotivated. And I don't think that is actually true. When I don't eat, I say to myself, why am I not eating? Well, I'm not eating because I've made all these mistakes. So if I hadn't made these mistakes, I would be eating. So therefore, you would think that would motivate me. And when you don't eat, you feel really, really weak, and you feel, oh, this feeling is coherent because I am really, really weak. But this isn't actually. This doesn't have the desired result. When I don't eat for days, all I want is to eat. I'm not thinking about my life. After several days without eating, I just want to eat. Especially if I'm consuming media as well. If I'm not eating and not doing anything, which I sometimes do, I'll not eat for several days and just spend the whole day sitting in my room, not doing anything or walking around. Then I become desperate for human interaction. Well, I become desperate to see certain people that I haven't seen in many, many years. But if I start browsing the internet again, or if I eat again, that feeling does go away. And you might think that it's motivating, but it's not, because I don't even have the energy to go see those people when I'm so hungry. I just think about it and cry. And cutting myself. I've been cutting myself a lot recently, and the purpose really is to try to sort of get in touch with the gravity of life, right? So when you do something so drastic, and you're staring at your wounds and you're staring at your blood, you think, this will make me realize that things are grave. Even though things are easy, that doesn't mean they're not grave. But the problem is, that doesn't actually happen. When I cut myself, it doesn't get me in touch with the gravity of life. It gets me in touch with the inanity of life. Because I look at my blood and I think, oh yeah, that's it. I look at my cut, or look at my fat, and I think, oh yeah, that's it. There's not really anything going on here. So it's and that's not like motivating in the opposite way either. That's not like, oh, it makes me take things less seriously. No, it doesn't. That's not what happens. It's literally pointless. Yeah, I think that's it. It's freezing today. I'm wearing this jacket. A therapist gave it to me like 4 years ago, and I never wore it because I always thought it was kind of nice, so I didn't feel good enough to wear it. But today it was just so cold that it just felt like, yeah, I had to wear it. It's nice. I'm wearing pajamas underneath. I don't think that was because I decided the other day, on New Year's, I did actually decide to talk to my family. My sister said, it's very dark in here, and I said, maybe we should put the lights on. And she looked at me a bit weird, like well, she was clearly surprised that I said something, and that was it. I didn't say anything after that. But I feel like, yeah, I did what I set out to do. I wanted to say something, and I did. And I do feel like it made things overall more comfortable. It felt different after that comment, like I was more integrated, and I did feel a bit less exhausted this time than the last time. If this New Year's felt less exhausting than Christmas, and I think it was because I made that comment. Then afterwards, I and my family all decided to watch this show called 40 Towers. And I decided to watch with them for a bit, but I got pretty bored. I used to like that show like many years ago, but now I thought it was kind of, I don't know, I thought it was kind of boring. So I got up and I decided to spend the afternoon chatting with that online friend I made, and it was nice. We're still in lockdown. It's yeah, kind of eerie that there's nobody in the street. I think I should have taken more advantage of this. Yeah, I should. I'm gonna try to come out again before the lockdown is over, because I think it's gonna be over soon. And I think I've kind of wasted this great opportunity. I should have really been coming out every day. But it's just so cold, and I feel so tired after making each video. But I'm gonna try. Try to take advantage 1 or 2 times more before the lockdown ends. So thank you for watching.